A single retweet sparks a tense confrontation as Senator Welch presses a judicial nominee to explain who she believed were patriots and who were traitors, turning a routine confirmation hearing into a broader debate about neutrality, judgment, and whether past political rhetoric can follow someone onto the federal bench.
Before Senator Welch speaks, supporting Ms. Lane's nomination from 33 current and former state solicitors general and other members of their senior staff. They happen to praise Ms. Lane for her, quote, rare combination of intellectual rigor, practical insight, careful attention to details, qualities essential for a federal district judge, end quote. They also highlighted her, quote, ability to manage demanding caseloads, develop persuasive legal arguments, and engage effectively with courts and opposing counsels. Without objection, that will be entered into the record. Senator Welch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to follow up, Ms. Westerkamp, on this conflict of interest question and recusal. I mean, you worked, of course, in the White House, and you worked on the trade policies and the tariffs. Is that correct?
Senator, I worked on, as I disclosed in my Senate judicial questionnaire, various executive orders and proclamations.
You had nothing to do with the tariffs?
Oh, we don't open.
Senator, some of the executive orders, as I said, executive orders related to trade and tariffs.
Right. So, and that was obviously an enormous pillar of the Trump policy. Tariffs are really, really important to the administration, as you know. The IEPA, the court that you'll be serving on, should you be confirmed, found that those were unconstitutional, correct?
The CIT, with the 3-judge panel, yes, held that it was unconstitutional.
Right, and the U.S. Supreme Court affirmed that decision and said the CIT decided correctly, correct?
That is correct, Senator.
All right, so just explain to me how there's any question about whether you should recuse yourself. You worked in the White House, where a major policy of the White House was the promotion of tariffs, and now you'd be sitting on a court where they found those tariffs unconstitutional. And should there be further litigation about these tariffs, you cannot tell us today whether you would recuse yourself in view of the fact that you were an advocate for the tariffs in one case and now you'd be on a court that found those tariffs to be unconstitutional?
Again, Senator, I would take recusal very seriously. In terms of recusing for any matters, executive orders that I worked on, I believe the president had actually revoked those executive orders via another executive order after the Supreme Court's IEPA decision.
It's impossible for me to understand this. I mean, you worked for a client on a policy that has been determined to be unconstitutional. You had a right to do that. Obviously, the president made his decision. You were his advocate. But now you're on a court where that court and the Supreme Court has said those are unconstitutional, and there's going to be questions about refunding those tariffs. In fact, there are questions about that right now. And you can't just make a clear expression to us about whether you would or would not recuse yourself when you were on both sides of the issue?
Senator, I think it would not be inappropriate to grade my own work, so to speak. And so, yes, I would, for specific matters that I worked on in the White House, would recuse myself. And I would add that the refund litigation is actively before, I think it's Judge Eaton in the Court of International Trade. And so it would be inappropriate for me to comment on how that is proceeding.
I want to ask you about a couple of tweets. George Papadopoulos, who tweeted out, there are but two parties now, traitors and patriots. And as you know, he's a former advisor to President Trump. And my understanding is you retweeted that out. Did you do that?
Senator, I don't have Twitter in front of me right now. I take you at your word that I had tweeted that. And as I stated previously, I think that retweeting from people that I don't know, including the gentleman you just mentioned, is an inappropriate way to express oneself on any controversial political or just matter.
retweeting is an indication that you want to amplify what you read in the tweet, right? That's why people retweet, correct?
Senator, I believe so.
Right. Well, who are the traitors and who are the patriots?
This in your file.
Senator, again, I think that this, as a judicial nominee, it would be inappropriate for me to comment on the topic of controversial subject matter, and I have apologized for.
Unbelievable. I'm asking you, you'd retweeted something, all right? You made an active decision to amplify a tweet. You thought other people should see it. That tweet included patriots and traitors. So I'm asking you, when you retweeted that, who in your mind were the patriots and who in your mind were the traitors?
Senator, I don't have any context for that, and I have apologized for
I'm not asking
retweeting.
you for context. You did this. You did it. You hit send. So who are the patriots and who are the traitors?
And Senator, I don't have an answer for you.
Unbelievable. On November 14th, you retweeted a post by an account @CamVTV. The tweet read, in part, quote, "Big distinction between us and the party of hate."
You have the final.
Who is the party of hate?
Senator, again, first of all, I'm out of time, but I also, as I said, don't agree with everything that has been retweeted in the past.
Do you agree with anything you did in the past?
Um,
You have to figure that out.
Senator, as to your specific question, I don't have an answer for you.
My time is up. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Lane, when she was asked this last question, so I would give you an opportunity to respond to Senator Coons's comments if you want to take advantage of it.
Thank you, Chairman Grassley. At no point in any of my representation in any litigation that I've been involved in have I ever been held in contempt, sanctioned, or formally rebuked by a judge. In a letter that was submitted to this committee, it referenced litigation that I was involved in, and that was in a state trial court. I was an attorney tasked with defending the state of Montana, and the trial judge went out of his way to say that the attorneys in the case had done nothing wrong and had complied with all of our legal and ethical obligations. And I appreciate the opportunity to clear the record.
Okay. Now the meeting is over.
Senator Welch zeroes in on a judicial nominee's past retweet that divided Americans into patriots and traitors. And his questioning isn't really about social media. It's about judicial neutrality. By asking who she believed those labels applied to, Welch is testing whether the nominee views political disagreement as something more extreme. For a potential federal judge, that matters because litigants from all sides must trust they'll get a fair hearing, regardless of politics. The nominee apologizes for the retweet, but repeatedly declines to explain what she meant, and that's where the tension builds. Welch argues that retweeting is an intentional act of amplification, not a passive scroll. If a judge once promoted language that paints opponents as traitors, the concern is whether that mindset could shape how politically sensitive cases are viewed in court. The earlier discussion about her past work on tariffs and whether she would recuse herself adds to the scrutiny, raising broader questions about independence and judgment. This exchange highlights how confirmation hearings now examine not just legal qualifications, but tone, temperament, and public statements. Senators are looking for reassurance that nominees can separate personal political expression from judicial responsibility. When direct answers don't come, the focus shifts from what was said to what wasn't clarified, leaving viewers to weigh whether neutrality has been convincingly demonstrated. Watch the full exchange and decide where you stand. Subscribe to Capital Lens for more clear, contextual breakdowns of the hearings shaping public accountability.